Good evening. Welcome to episode 6 of A Little Night podcast with NESST. You join us this evening for a little bit of theatre in the round. The idea being that we're putting theatre at the centre of a discussion, and we're going to be discussing a few things about it from various perspectives. And I'm joined this evening by a couple of people who have very, very unique perspectives, completely different to my own, me being David Parker. We're joined by Italia Conti's finest, at least from NEST's point of view, as really we don't really know anybody else from Italia Conti, but Marya Smith.
Yeah, I'm actually terrible. I'm the worst.
Not in our eyes. And for very much the same reasons, Thailand's finest, for largely the same reasons as we say, Albertus Rinaldi.
Oh, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Of course, it's probably late at night at yours.
It is.
Coming directly from Thailand.
It's 11. Oh, I'm from Jakarta.
Thank you very much.
It's in Indonesia, actually. Wait.
Okay. Well, our research is very much... Yeah, that's my fault.
That's all right.
Apologies, Jakarta.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m. out here. It's quite late.
11 p.m.
Yeah.
Well, we very much appreciate you staying up well past your bedtime.
No problem at all.
So I mean, we basically just want to discuss a bit of sort of the UK theatre, but obviously you guys have a little bit of a different perspective. Obviously, Albertus, you're providing the international perspective.
Yep.
From the amount of time that you spent in the UK. You were up until quite recently in northeast England.
Mm-hmm.
Then Anna, yourself, obviously born and bred in the northeast, but have spent more than a reasonable amount of time down in London.
Yeah, just a bit.
My personal experience is very much northeast centric. My entirely really, apart from one jaunt down to London to go and see Les Mis. Literally all of the theatre that I've ever seen has been in the northeast. So 3 very, very different contrasting perspectives, and hopefully we can pull it apart a little bit. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start from with the northeast. Obviously, I'll start. Albertus, you came across our founder, Tim Jasper. You came across his radar.
Yep.
Singing at a showaoke event in Alphabetti.
Yeah.
This was very much, Alphabetti theatre being a bit of the gem in the fringe crown of Newcastle. So just, take us through that evening. Sort of, how did you come to find yourself there, and what were you singing most importantly?
Okay. All right. So starting from maybe how I got to know Alphabetti Theatre is because I studied a major called Arts, Business, and Creativity at Newcastle University. And one of the lecturers actually took us on a tour to Alphabetti, and just we went around and checked out the venue. And I do think, coming from a theater background in Indonesia, most of you know that I had a musical theater community here in Jakarta, and having that some kind of safe space in Newcastle is something that's how do I say it? It just feels like home. And then I followed the social media, and apparently there's this showaoke thing going on where there's a musical theater karaoke night, basically. So I just went in and joined with a couple of my friends. Just went there just to have a good time. That's what happened. I went up and sang. I kind of forgot what I sang though. I think I sang.
I'm sure the room didn't. The room would remember it. I'm sure it was.
I think I sang Anthem from Chess, I think. And I sang a couple of other songs that I forgot. But yeah, I definitely sang that. And after the show concluded, Tim basically went up to me and said, "Hey, there's this project coming up. would you like to be a part of it? And yeah, I think that's where the magic happened, basically.
And rightfully so. I mean, anybody who watched our On-Stage Online concert back in the summer will agree that, your rendition of Pretty Lady, it was beautiful, man. Very, very difficult song. Very, very well sung.
Thank you.
Tremendous. Alphabetti, obviously, as I say, it is a bit of a jewel in the fringe, in the crown of Newcastle's Fringe Theatre. Very inclusive. They put on these kinds of things. They the shoyoke, and it's a very good place for people to sort of cut their teeth, and sort of from a writing point of view, but an acting point of view, getting to know a bit of a community, a very inclusive kind of hub. From which people can. I'm going to do graduate in air quotes. They are very up and coming, but they only opened several years ago. But they can graduate to the likes of Live Theatre and Northern Stage through that. So yeah, a very, very good place to start. The prices, a lot of stuff is pay as you feel, and you really. This is turning into a bit of an advert for them, but I've had a rough time through the summer. I know, but largely the theatre landscape has. But we're not talking about this. We're keeping it positive. And for me, that's kind of what theatre is about. Pushing progressive issues. Giving everybody a voice as much as possible. However, the most lively aspect of the Northeast Theatre is probably the amateur circuit. There's barely anybody who I know who hasn't been through the amateur circuit. Obviously, Anna Maria, I know that you did some work down at the Assembly Rooms. The first thing that I saw you in was a version of Dogfight.
Yeah, that show. I think that production for me kind of sums up the issue that I have with the Northeast theatre scene, which, don't get me wrong, I love it. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now without the Northeast theatre scene. But for me, whenever you try and do anything slightly different, if it's not in Alphabetti, it's not going to land. We did a production of Dogfight, which I ended up directing fairly last minute because we lost our director. And it was
a symptom of amateur theatre.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, definitely, that's true.
It was one of the strongest casts I've ever been in a musical with. Two of my good friends in the lead roles who were absolutely incredible. And we hardly sold any tickets. Everyone who came to see the show absolutely loved it. We got good reviews, which is quite hard to do in the Northeast, just to get good reviews. And yeah, it was a half empty theatre every night, which was a shame.
But from a performer's point of view, I myself as well, I feel very much that I cut my teeth on the amateur circuit. The People's Theatre and the Time Theatre productions. From a performer's point of view, there's definitely things that you can try there and things that you learn that you don't necessarily get the opportunity to try elsewhere.
100%. And I mean, we were the Northeast premiere of Dogfight. Nobody's done it since, to my knowledge. And it's such a brilliant musical, written by the same guys who wrote Dear Evan Hansen. And it's quite rare that you get the chance to perform in a gem like that. You don't, it's not often produced. So getting to actually just even experience doing a show like that in the Northeast, like with your friends, is kind of amazing in itself.
And it seems that it's set up that's kind of, you get these opportunities, and from there you get the experience. You work with people who have connections, who can sort of send you on to various places. I'm talking from personal experience here as well. Not so much from a musical theatre point of view. Obviously, the People's Theatre I mentioned before, it's more straight acting. I hate that term, straight acting. There's got to be a better term. Just something without music involved.
Yeah, plays and musicals is how I try and like separate the two, because it's like, are musicals not straight acting? Like, are we not serious enough?
Precisely.
Like,
Albertus, anything to? What's your sort of main experience? I mean, obviously, beautiful singing voice, but straight plays.
I mean, I definitely, how do I say it? I think for me, straight plays are good, but I think it's definitely not my cup of tea. It's something that I might enjoy musicals more due to the fact that sometimes, this is a bad habit of mine, but I do it anyways. Every time I watch something, I usually lip sync to this musical itself. So I guess there's when I watch musicals, there's this sort of activity when you know the music, you'll be able to enjoy it. Unless in plays, sometimes it's just you don't know what to expect, which is sometimes good and which is sometimes bad. But yeah, I personally do feel musicals suit me more of uh, because of like that music aspect, because of because I enjoy like researching things before watching something. So I guess like
Sure.
that's how it comes like as why I chose like musicals better than plays. If you get what I mean.
I'm entirely the opposite. I like knowing absolutely nothing about something before I go in and see it, and I've made that mistake far too many times with a Shakespeare. And I'm sat there halfway through a Shakespeare, not having a clue what's going on. But then, afterwards, I sort of download the wiki synopsis and find out exactly what was happening all the way through. And I suppose that
sometimes it's good when you get when you're like surprised by things, though. But I'm not a person who does things impulsively. But sometimes, well, I was surprised by like my personal experience. I was surprised by how good Anne Juliet was, because I didn't expect nothing from it, because when I went to London, I already booked other musicals, and then I was just thinking, okay, like I have like my last night in London, I should watch something so randomly, and then I ended up watching a Juliet and fell in love with it. And then after that, I listened to the cast album and everything like that. So yeah, definitely. Like if you do something spontaneously, it might come as something good. Could be.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely getting into Anna Maria's territory there, talking about London. Anything you want to pick up on there? I'll give you the floor. I'll make it as broad as possible.
I think one thing I've noticed about the London theatre scene, once you've seen the big few shows, and by that I mean like Les Mis, Wicked, Phantom, it's very hard to be blown away by theatre, as a spectacle. However, I went to see The Prince of Egypt not so long ago. It was one of the last things I saw before lockdown happened. And that was one of the most spectacular musicals I've ever seen in terms of visuals. I mean, everything about it was brilliant, but in terms of like visuals and physical theatre and set and lighting, it was on par with those kind of big legendary shows.
Whereabouts was this, by the way?
That's at the Dominion Theatre.
Yeah, Dominion.
Where Bat Out of Hell used to be. Another brilliant show that went too soon. But yeah, The Prince of Egypt was one of those shows where you just sit back in your seat and you're like, wow, like there's so much going on. It's incredible. But I think for me, the real gem of London theatre is the Southwark Playhouse. Wow. It is the first theatre I visited as kind of an old, one of the first theatres I visited as an older person, as an adult, essentially. Going to London, I went to see a production of Work in there. I'd booked tickets to see something else like the next day, and we thought, oh, should we try and get in for something tonight? And it's this tiny theatre, probably not a great deal bigger than Alphabetti. but they just put on the most incredible off West End productions. I've seen so much there. I've seen Ain't Misbehaving there. I was supposed to see the new Actor Muso last 5 years, just before they closed the theatre.
All right.
I had tickets.
Oh.
Yeah, they closed it on this Friday, and I had tickets for the Monday.
Devastating.
I was supposed to be going with company manager Adam Donaldson, actually, but we had to cancel, which was incredibly upsetting.
I know that he would have been
yeah.
absolutely gutted about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just there's a few theatres like that in London. There's now like the Turbine Theatre. I've seen a few things at the Union Theatre, and I think it's just the level of artistry that you get in these smaller venues. Similar to Alphabetti, when you compare like Alphabetti versus the big amateur companies in the Northeast, it's similar with comparing these off West End theatres with these big on West End theatres. There's so much more room for creativity and for trial that some of the stuff you see is just so emotionally spectacular rather than being, a visual spectacular all the time.
Sure. They need to find like new ways of doing things. Necessity is the mother of all invention, and when you have a budget that's very, very tight, you need to find brilliant new ways and effective ways of wowing people, because you don't have that sort of big number and all the rest of it, the big budget. Yeah, Albertus, there was a bit of recognition there to the what was it, Anne Maria, the Southwark Playhouse?
Yeah, it was Southwark Playhouse.
Southwark Playhouse. Do you know of it, Albertus? Have you been there?
I mean, like for me, I kind of regretted not going to these like small theaters. I've known the Southwark Playhouse, like I've known the Turbine Theatre for about a few years back when I was in the UK on studies, but I don't know, maybe because I had like this tight timeline for only 2 years, like I have to watch big shows because like I might not know when I will watch big shows again. So I tend to go to like those more like professional theaters, definitely like Jervin Henson, Wicked, Hamilton, and everything like that, big theaters. Sure. But speaking of like the small theaters, like and like the amateur companies having like those tight budgets, so like they have to make something creative out of it. That resonates to me a lot because if I may speak, the condition here in Jakarta, Indonesia, is quite the same with those small venues and like and those companies. We have these small tight knit theater communities that don't have that big of a budget to make a spectacular production, just like as you can see on the West End. So they have to make ends meet, and they really have to. They only have this tight budget, and how are they able to make something that's like great, and how do they have to make something creative and good out of it so people can enjoy what they watch? And honestly, here in Jakarta, although budget is something that's always been a problem here, but I've seen a lot of great talents. I've seen a lot of great productions came out of it, and of like how they are able to push through with their creativity with not a lot amount of money, but just spectacular productions.
Tremendous. So in Jakarta, what sort of theatre do you get? Like, do you get the big commercial works out of America or out of the UK? Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few tours. We had Beauty and the Beast, we had Mamma Mia, we had Shrek. I think those are the three big ones that are included in their international tours, and the rest is just like local theater communities buying a license to production and just producing it. So we've had West Side Story, Dreamgirls, Fame, Hairspray. let me think about it. Children of Eden, and those are all from local theater communities.
So a night out to the theatre in Jakarta would look very similar to a night out, probably in Newcastle.
Yeah,
Possibly
definitely.
not so much in London.
Well, I mean, I think theater as a form of entertainment is here in Jakarta. It's not something that's how do I say it? It's not something that's normal. You know, like when in
Okay.
London or like maybe in the Northeast, like when you see theater, like even if it's a touring production, like maybe in Theatre Royal or like just maybe something in Northern Stage, people
Sure.
like would come and like buy tickets. Here it's a little bit more different. A lot of people here, their only form of entertainment, 80% of citizens of Jakarta only go to shopping centers, only go to malls. We have like almost
How's
like
entertainment?
we have like almost like 100 different shopping centers in Jakarta alone. So yeah, weekends are just like people going to shopping centers. So there's this tight competition between entertainment inside the shopping center and entertainment in the theater. So for
I'm
me,
with
in
you.
the past few years, I mean, it's getting better, but uh, communities find it very hard to promote their their theater production because people prefer shopping or like just eating out. So that's
I can
something to
kind
promote.
of empathize with that. I know that when it comes to money, food or theatre, you can get quite a few meals for a theatre ticket.
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
like Legally Blonde would go down a treat in Jakarta if you guys like shopping so much. Maybe that should be your next big tour.
Spoiler alert.
Join the two together.
Spoiler alert. I think there will be a production of Legally Blonde next year. Hopefully, all things go well. Hopefully,
Wow.
because I might or might not be in that production.
Dun, dun, dun.
Ooh, you're just here first.
I honestly can't get over this shopping malls as entertainment thing.
Yep.
Like, make it a day at the Metro Center for me is like my worst nightmare. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, it's something normal here, definitely. Because I don't know. I guess like all forms of entertainment are just like in this one place, and people just like tend to go there. But yeah, that's Jakarta for
I
you
suppose
guys.
if you so are most of your cinemas in the malls and stuff as well?
Yeah.
Makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
And that kind of nicely brings me as another slight segue. I wanted to discuss a little bit broader, the way the theatre's been across the decades, really. I mean, it's the wrong industry, but you're talking about cinema there, briefly mentioning. The success of Gone with the Wind, it was very much because people wanted that level of escapism after the World War and all, etc. And obviously, there is still very much that element of escapism from, the theatre takes you away and gets you out of the day-to-day grind. But, throughout the 90s and really up until now, there's been the commercialization, and that's gone from strength to strength. And you're talking about tours here, massive names. Disney's obviously muscled in with Aladdin, Lion King, The Little Mermaid on Broadway. And yeah, so I mean, obviously, everything's a business nowadays, and there's got to be, something has to be financially viable. But as I said earlier, what I want to get most from theatre is progressive voices and historical issues highlighted in very maybe different ways. And I personally feel, Hamilton is kind of achieving that goal, and that seems to have got the balance correct between showing history in a slightly different way. It's the original cast. I'm not sure about the more recent cast, but the original cast was very much made up of,
People of color.
Yeah.
people of color. It's very much going in the right direction. And when you have such a smash hit, like Hamilton just seems to have, like, if you're talking about the Venn diagram, that seems to be bang in the middle, and that seems to be, why it's so massively successful. And maybe this is sort of the way forward for theatre. Maybe other things should sort of take that example and run with it, because there is a massive market there.
Yeah, I feel there's a responsibility when you're producing something that is kind of for the money, something that is very commercial and is going to be successful. Then you kind of have a duty to make sure that you are also pushing the agenda for equality in theatre. There are, for me, The Lion King is pretty much always like at least 90% people of color. But if you're putting The Little Mermaid on Broadway, you cannot tell me that all the fish need to be Caucasian, able-bodied people. Especially in terms of fantasy or anything that's set so far from today, or even things that are set today, theatre is and should be a reflection on society. And especially if you're putting something on for commerciality, then your duty to make sure that you are representing these groups that maybe didn't get a chance to voice the actors in the original, screenplay, or, there's no reason why Ariel can't, the Ariel in the Little Mermaid remake is black. It's Halle from Chloe X Halle, but, there's no reason why she can't be. And I think, it makes for a lot more interesting theatre, having different voices, having different, something different to look at. I mean, how many times have you seen a show, especially like an old Broadway kind of 42nd Street Singing in the Rain, where there's 40 girls on stage who all look the exact same, and you couldn't tell which one was your favourite ensemble member because they all look the same. It's just not, it's not necessary anymore.
I think for me, like to add that why representation matters a lot is definitely because of, you don't see a lot of as Anna says, you don't see a lot of Asians in theater. So for me personally, first when I watched Hamilton back then was, damn, that cast is very inclusive. I might be able to play something later in the future. And imagine little kids watching, either if it's Hamilton or like maybe Six and Juliet, which pushes that kind of like diversity on stage. Imagine little kids who saw that and say that, oh, I can be something like that someday. Which is,
it would mean the absolute world to them. Whereas, from our point of view, my personal point of view, it doesn't affect me either way, sort of thing. But when something means so much to somebody, but other people are so apathetic towards it, it's why not? There's only massive benefits to it. Yeah, and any dissenting voices, that's they need to get with the times, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that is something very powerful, I think. For people to see themselves being represented in something that they love and in something that they are passionate about. It's just like, how do I say it? It's a good feeling to have someone out there representing you in front of the stage.
Yeah, I think there's things as well, like Deaf West Theatre in America, who they produced the really famous Broadway production of Spring Awakening, where they had a deaf actor signing, playing the main part, and then a voice. So a hearing actor would be stood behind them, dressed in all black, singing, and then the deaf actor would act and sign. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, as someone who like suffers from hearing loss, I don't sign because I can still hear. However, seeing that representation for people who, have my condition, but even more severe than I do, and being able to watch something so stunning as well. And the fact that there was 2 actors and the fact that they were signing didn't detract anything from the storyline. And it adds to what we said before about that kind of keeping the creativity of theatre at the heart of what you're doing. When you can be that creative and also that inclusive, I don't see why there's any reason not to be. Anything less than that seems lazy almost. When
it almost sets the bar.
So progressive. Yeah, it's amazing. If you haven't seen clips from Deaf West Spring Awakening, I would 100% recommend it. It's incredible. So good.
No, it sounds fascinating. I mean, I can imagine, sign language and it almost being an art form in itself. The amount of times that I, you're watching something late at night and the person who's doing the sign language is there at the bottom of the screen, and it's sometimes it's just encapsulating watching them.
Yeah, I mean, in Spring Awakening, they use visual vernacular, which is a combination of choreography and sign language. So sometimes they would take out, if a sign was quite complex to understand the speed that they had to do it, they would take it out and add something, like add another part of like physical imagery, which would be easy for the audience to understand whether they're hearing or non-hearing. And then in aid, like that's also aided by things like lighting and positioning on the stage. And it's so clever, and it just creates this really like, it's almost like, those 4D rides you go on at Disneyland where things are spraying at you and like it's moving and it's 3D. It's almost like that because you're just like, you're being kind of stimulated in every single way. And it's just really, really incredible to watch.
It sounds it. I'll definitely check them out on YouTube, I'm assuming, since I'm not going to sort of travel to America anytime soon.
No,
or maybe they'll come over here. Maybe there'll be invitations.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. I mean, the deaf theatre scene in the UK it does exist, but in my experience, I've not seen anything yet, like anything kind of advertised at the same level as something like Wicked or and Juliet, which is a shame, but we're moving forward, we're taking steps, so hopefully by the time this podcast is uploaded you'll see it then.
And I personally think that that's a lovely hopeful note to end on.
Definitely.
So we hope very much that you enjoyed that. That's just 3 people talking about their experiences in theatre. 3 entirely different experiences. And I think we found some common ground, common little tidbits of information. And I think we'll learn something as well. Probably most the fact that Albertus is from Jakarta and not from Thailand. Which, once again, very sorry. That's that was my mistake. But no, thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. We hope that you're enjoying these A Little Night podcast with NESST. And that was Theatre in the Round with me, David Parker, Anna Maria Smith, and Albertus Reynaldi. We will catch you next week for more.